So what we got here is the Torque Took 1954 Handyman wagon. If you see these inlays in the bodywork right here, but also back here on the barn door, on these cars you could actually get real wooden inlays. You could also get fake inlays that just looked like wood. But even if I had those on the 54, it would not be a genuine Woody, because Woodies, they had chassis of metal, but most of the body were made of wood. It started out in, before the Second World War, but during the World War, lots of cars were made with wooden bodies because all the metal went to the war. There are not too many of these cars left, but the ones that are still around, they're just as magnificent as they ever were. And we went to Huntington Beach in California to meet up with the guys who really take care of the wooden cars.
I'm sitting in my old Ford. It's a 1941 Ford station wagon. We call them Woodies. And it's all fixed up, and we drive it around on sunny days, which is most of the time here in Southern California.
Would you say that, this area is where the Woodies are most alive in the whole world, maybe?
Yes, of course, Southern California, because of the great weather, the wood on these cars did not deteriorate as it did in other climates, like in Boston, where we came from. So if you looked in the Woody register, you would find that most of them are in California because it's a dry climate.
They really never made steel-bodied station wagons until 1949 was the first one that was ever made. The way it happened was, as the motor car began to be invented in the teens and 20s, when they wanted a station wagon, they didn't have the tooling to make steel-bodied station wagons. So what they did was they modified coaches, stage coaches and things like that. And so coach builders built the bodies for station wagons all the way up until the 40s. And then it became too much of a pain to maintain them, because the manual, when you bought one of these, it said that you're supposed to sand it off and re-varnish it every 6 months. So twice a year you have to varnish this wood. A lot of people didn't want to do that. The Woodies were most popular with people in my age group because we grew up with them as kids. In the early 60s, the station wagons had become metal, so the Woodies weren't being produced anymore, and they were becoming junk, and they were cheap. So we would all buy them, mainly because they would haul our surfboards around.
This was a good feature for the surfing community here in Southern California, because they could put their long surfboards in and stick them out through this window. So that was another reason why they liked them.
This is a 1949 Dodge Woody. It's built on a half-ton truck chassis. Back in the day, the majority of the Woodies that we see today you think of are car like station wagons, and they were used for things like estates where people would have them up in the country to go fishing and hunting in and haul their families around. And they also used the car station wagons for going to the station to pick up tourists to go up to the resorts. But these were built on truck chassis, and they were used more like buses. There were fewer of them made, and because they were commercial type vehicles, they tended to get beat up a lot, so there are very few of them left. So they tend to be more rare than the car Woodies these days.
So basically, every single one of these cars were, really custom made.
You're absolutely correct. When you start taking them apart, putting them back together, you realize that when they were assembling them, if something didn't fit right, or if they had an extra piece of wood for the floor, like some of the floorboards are made one way, and the next car you work on, the floorboards are different because at the time they had different wood available.
The wood is like any other furniture job. You get the wood, you sand it, you smooth it, you varnish it, you stain it, you steel wool it, you can put multiple coats on it. So that's really not quite as hard as the metal work of restoring a car. But it takes some skill and time, and it's a great hobby because it is a time-consuming hobby, and it doesn't have to be very, very expensive unless you want to make it very costly. It's a handmade car. And you know, it's something you can't say about most other cars unless we're into the very exotic, expensive cars. But they are handmade. These are notoriously hard riding, and they squeak because of the wood. So I've never been in a Woody that didn't bump around a little bit and squeak when it was driving along. But that's part of the charm and part of the magic of it that we like.